Jupiter Broadcasting presents this show in mega stereo sound. This episode of the Linux Action Show brought to you in part by GoDaddy.com. Use the promo code Linux and save yourself some cash. And of course, from donations of people that are, it's like people get donated, you know? And it's free. It's free. It's tax exempt.
No, it's not.
No, when you donate people, it is. It's
donate people.
Right.
But
You can't, Chris, you can't put a worth on person.
This week on the Linux Action Show, we're back in the action saddle and we're playing Linux Catchup. We cover the week's top news stories and teach you how to use Webcam Studio like a boss. And so much more. Oh, this week on the Linux Action Show. Ooh. And welcome to Linux Action Show, Season 2021. 2021.
21. We're just old enough to drink, B-Man. Just old enough to drink.
Episode 4. My name is Brian. I am not in the studio, but the guy that is in the studio is Chris.
Hey there, Brian. The new experimental Tricorder runs Linux. Check out this Tricorder project this dude put together. Of course, he's a very smart dude. And he's posted up on tricorderproject.org. Did you see this, B-Man?
It's ridiculous. It's awesome and ridiculous.
It is extremely ridiculous, right?
I love the hell out of it.
This guy's got real legitimate sensors in there. It can get all kinds of different, very tricorder-like sensors that you'd expect. But what's cooler than that, besides the fact that it runs Linux, is he's actually got like diagrams on his site of the main board. He's got information about the case design.
Isn't that cool?
He's got pictures of the inner workings.
I know.
He's also, Ars Technica did a full write-up on this thing, and he's got a pretty interesting video over there. The first time I saw this, I thought it was an iOS-based device because of the keyboard.
Because the graphics he used on the keyboard.
Yeah. So I actually kind of ignored it at first, despite how cool it was. But then later on, just seeing more and more about it, it's a full little Linux box. He must have just skinned the keyboard, I guess.
I would assume so.
He likes the iOS skin on the keyboard. But this is a really fast... He's made a couple of them now, too. That's the other thing. Is he's made like 3 different versions of this thing.
Oh, heck yeah.
So
if you're making tricorders, you want to make a bunch of tricorders. Heck, even in the original series, they had multiple tricorders. So
That's true. He even has, in the video, he shows like a little detachable wand-like scanner thing like Dr. McCoy had for doing medical scans. How cool is that?
Pretty much the coolest thing ever.
All right, we got a good show this week, B-Man. Now, like you mentioned, you're remote because both of us forgot that Easter was this Sunday, and then about halfway through the day yesterday, we're like, oh crap! Well, we gotta make plans because we forgot to tell people we wouldn't have a show. So now we gotta have a show, but we're doing it early.
It's also Passover. Passover starting.
Yeah, that starts Friday, right?
Yeah, because that's something I actually. So this is the problem. If you're Jewish and you have family that's Christian, you're sandwiched between Passover and Easter. That means you have to do both.
That's your position. Yeah.
I'm not a holiday guy, Chris.
No, neither am I really.
I like 2 or 3 holidays. I got a couple of holidays. I'm like, that's a cool damned holiday. Sure. I like those holidays. Holidays I have to do work for, prep work, traveling to meet family, not my type of holidays.
I'm not a big candy guy anymore either, so Easter, that's lost its appeal too.
It's gone. I don't need a gigantic semi-chocolate, pseudo-chocolate Easter bunny.
Right.
I just don't need that.
Right.
I don't need that. Plus, I don't know how much you know about Passover, but the whole thing with Passover is basically you don't get to eat good food for a while. That's pretty much the gist of it. Literally, you can have bread, but not if you bake it for too long.
Right.
Like, it needs to be flat and dry and kind of sit in your intestines a little funny.
Right.
And then you're allowed to have it. Yeah. So while I'm doing the good thing, I'm doing all the family thing, doing the traveling, it does mean I can't be in the studio. Major bummer.
And we apologize to anybody who tuned in live over jblive.tv at our 10 a.m. Pacific regular time slot for the live show. But it's Easter, so you should probably be doing something Easter related, like eating really bad chocolate or something.
Or
I would guess. Yeah.
You're in the middle of Passover and you should be sitting around eating nothing but macaroons because you can eat macaroons on Passover.
Right.
And now I think the only thing you're allowed to eat.
We've got some catch up to do this week, B-Man. There was some stories that we need to get to. And also, Matt's going to join us to talk about Webcam Studio. We love Webcam Studio here on the show.
Webcam Studio is cool.
Yeah, and so he's got a how-to for basically doing some a little lower-end version of kind of what we do with some camera switching and live effects and things like that while capturing from your webcam and maybe capturing your desktop. So Matt's going to cover that in the second half of the show. But we got a big news segment because, well, frankly, there's some stories that thankfully alternate Brian and Chris, the hat-wearing Chris sat and with the hat-wearing Brian last week. But I haven't watched the episode, but based on the comments, I'm guessing they changed the format a little bit. So I think we have some news and some stuff we've got to catch up to kind of make up for those two lackeys. But before we do that...
Related note.
Yeah.
Before we dive into GoDaddy,
sure.
I would like to point out how incredibly hard it was to actually do a Windows Action Show. Chris and I, and viewers and listeners that have been around for a while, you know that some weeks there's just not a lot of news.
Yeah.
Some weeks we look around and we're like, well, I guess this is the week that not a whole lot happens with Linux. We just have a nice, quiet week to ourselves.
Yeah, that's okay.
But those are okay. Normally on those weeks we can go dredge up, here's some cool apps we want to run. Mm-hmm. Here's some cool stuff going on. Turns out, even in the biggest weeks of the year for Windows, there's not actually a lot of news.
Yeah,
there's not a whole lot to cover.
That probably sounds like total BS on its face, but I'll tell you guys, Brian and I were kind of surprised. Like,
it's hard.
I don't think we could do a weekly Windows Action Show because there'd not be enough to talk about.
I think the only thing we could do is talk about specific applications that happen to run on Linux. I think that's your only option if you do a Windows show. On Windows.
Yeah.
But like with a Linux show, you can talk about like 75,000 different distributions, what's changing, 18 different new UI designs. With Windows, it's Microsoft has a new UI.
Yeah.
That's the news for the year.
Right.
Better stretch it out.
Right. And everything in open source is done out in the open.
So we get to see it in progress.
Yeah, so you can talk about it while people are working on it. Whereas with Windows and Microsoft, it's like seriously, like if we were doing a Windows Action Show this week, I think we'd have to be talking about like Xbox 360 rumors. That's like how far off course we'd have to go. Yeah,
you absolutely would have to. I don't even know what those are, but you'd have to make them up.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's say good morning to GoDaddy.com because they were nice enough to put Danica on the front page Thursday early morning for us, just so that way she could say hi. And if you look closely there, she's got a little note that says, "Hey, Brian, I'm GoDaddy's racing girl." She's got it right there. She also wants me to relay to you some important information. If you want to save some cash when you check out, use the code 599COM8 and you can get $5.99.coms. Up to 5 of them for $5.99 each. Or if you want to use the code SPRING8, you will save 15% when you check out. That's a great one to do if you're doing like some spring renewals and renewing some domains or something like that, which Brian needs to do. And that would save you 15%.
I'm working on it.
I know. I just have to remind you all the time because that way I can give you a hard time if you forget. You see, that's how it works. That's all in preparation for giving you a hard time when you forget.
Not to change the topic or anything, but I want to change the topic so no one gives me a hard time anymore. But this week, so my main domain, my lunduk.com domain, has
you're a tycoon this week.
It's just been blistering, all running off of like I pay like 2 cents a month or whatever the hell it is for GoDaddy's shared hosting server.
Yeah.
It's Linux shared hosting. I think it's $7 a month is what I pay for there. It's like unlimited everything.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you wonder how well does that scale? I mean, for $7 a month, obviously it's going to hit a point where my WordPress blog or something's going to crumple in on itself if I get posted to the Reddit. Well, don't worry about it.
I mean, yesterday you were getting traffic from Reddit.com, boingboing.com, TechCrunch.com.
TechCrunch, Engadget.
Engadget, yeah.
Everything. Like every website on the planet, I think, except Gizmodo was covering me yesterday.
Yeah, that's all right.
But the website held up fine. It never hiccuped at all. In fact, I started noticing that it felt a little peppier than usual. So I was like, wow, the more you put on this stuff, the better GoDaddy does. So say what you will about GoDaddy, that stuff holds up.
When it came down to brass taxes, right?
Yeah,
it could be that maybe Danica's just a big fan of the show, so she's sitting there, turning up the capacity knob as you need it, and then she
hits the nitro boost button.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think that's the personalized service that she offers to all customers that use our checkout codes. Also, you can use our code Linux to save 10% or Linux20 to save 20% on GoDaddy hosting. And thank you to GoDaddy.com. You can find all of those codes in the show notes. So if you don't remember them, just go check the show notes before you shop and you'll see them there.
Glorious.
B-Man, I've got a fun Android pick this week, and I think it's not my favorite game of all time, but if you just feel like you want to go back to another time, you want to step back into the Old West, then I want to recommend Six Guns. It's a free shooter game for Android. But the fun part is, and B-Man, I know you're not going to love this part, is you get to ride around in town in a horse and shoot people. I mean, I know you're not a big horse guy, but
here's the thing.
Yeah,
I don't like horses.
No.
I'm afraid of horses.
Right.
I'm not going to go into why.
I've always wondered why, actually.
You really want to know?
I'm not a huge horse guy myself, but I grew up with horses.
I'll talk about that sometime later.
All right, yeah.
Scare the dickens out of me.
Right.
However, totally okay with horses under one circumstance. If you have a 6-shooter and you have spurs on, so when you dig your spurs into the horse and you're riding the horse around, you're kind of torturing the horse a little bit when you do that. Boom,
oh, man.
I'm okay with it.
Oh, man.
I love me some animals.
Maybe that's why horses don't like you, B-Man.
I love every animal on the planet except horses. Horses, I'd be okay with riding a horse if I had spurs on.
You'd rather have a pet white shark, wouldn't you?
Dude.
Great white shark. You'd rather.
Are you being derogatory against white sharks now?
No, I love white sharks.
Dude, cuddly, and way misunderstood.
So,
evil.
I'll put a link to that. Go check it out. Six Guns.
Even ponies. Little tiny ones. Notes. Little tiny ponies with like the little shaggy feet things and like tassels and bells and stuff. Yeah. Evil.
I'm not going to lie. Actually, ponies bother the crap out of me too. There's just something about it that's not right.
About them. Ponies just scare me, dude.
Yeah.
Straight up scare me.
Yeah. All right, B-Man. Well, we have got a great Linux app pick this week. What do we have?
We have Linux Tycoon. It's no big deal.
What? How did this make it on the list? Yeah, this is your new game, man. You got to plug this.
Yeah. Well, two things. One, I highly recommend anyone out there get their own gigantic podcast, because then you can create an entire segment and dedicate it towards anything you do. It's fantastic, and no one can stop you.
That's an interesting approach.
Two, I made a Tycoon game about running your own Linux distribution.
That's cool.
In fact, it is, and I believe I can quote people on this, the premier Linux distro building and management simulation game on the planet.
Let's not lie. Let's be honest. Even if you hadn't made this this week, this would make it into the show, because it's just everywhere. Everybody's talking about it.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I made this game a ways back. Like I built 90% of this game long time ago, and I shelved it because I'm like, it's a fun game, but I got other more important projects to work on. No one would really buy this anyway. I need new graphics for it. Finished it up after making a joke on the Linux Action Show live feed, and someone in the live feed freaked out, and they're like, yes.
Take my money.
Yes,
take my money.
Now. So I'm like, okay, I'll put in some new graphics for it. Post this up there. Everyone's talking about it. It's by far and away the most coverage I've ever gotten for any piece of software I've ever made in my life. And I almost didn't even release the darn thing. It's ridiculous.
That's awesome. It shows there's a lot of love out there for this kind of stuff, dude. That's a really good sign.
What really freaked me out is that Cory Doctorow wrote that. It looked pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Cory freaking Doctorow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
You said Doctor? I say Doctorow.
Doctorow?
I don't know. Cory Doctorow.
I don't know how to say his name. All I know is I like his books.
Yeah.
And that makes me happy that he's talking about it.
Great books.
So that's going on right now. You can grab that from Lunduk.com for $4. It's in beta right now because there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to add to it, and I wasn't sure what other people would want to add to it. So I'm requesting people go to the Lunduk.com forums.
And that's the funny thing, right? Because you don't know if it's going to be a hit. So you put it out there, and well, let's keep adding stuff to it.
Some awesome requests. People are digging it. Costs $4. Love.
I got my copy last night. What's up?
It is, and because I've gotten a lot of questions on this, I want to be clear. It is negative in the freedom dimension.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, people have asked. I mean, a lot of people have asked.
Is it negative in the freedom dimension?
Yeah, it is negative in the freedom dimension.
Right,
in fact, there is a random event inside the game where if you do include closed source software inside your distro, it's entirely possible that somebody might declare your distro negative in the freedom dimension. Just say it.
Yeah, I've heard there's some references in there that Linux Action Show fans might like.
There are.
Yeah, nice. All right, well, how about we do the random distro pick, Brian? What do we got here? I'll do the in-studio spinner for you. Ding! What's our landing?
BioLinux. Which
Bio Linux.
I found this one and I was like, well, that's just funny. That's just a funny name because it makes me think of going potty.
That was the first thing I thought of.
First thing, bio-Linux. But really, it's actually pretty cool. Pretty much what it is this. It's Ubuntu with a bunch of apps, which normally is like, well, there's like 18 million Ubuntus with a bunch of apps and a changed wallpaper, which is what this is. But this includes a ton of apps all about bioinformatics and biometric processing, stuff for, biological engineering people to sit down and do like real serious hard science and bioinformating, and that's pretty cool. So I'm like, wow, that's really niche, really specific, and actually really cool. And it actually makes sense for the name. It's not just about pottying, it's actually about biology.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, there you go. People can go out there and grab that and do some science.
Yeah.
Do some science.
I downloaded it, loaded it up in a VM, and did not understand any of the applications.
That's how you know it's for professionals. That's how you know it's serious.
I know it's real. Yeah.
I know. It's always funny, actually, when you do that and you load up a distro like that and you see a ton of open source apps that have like desktop UIs and stuff that you've never even heard of.
Never heard of most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and their quality, like some of them are really like hardcore, like funky to use terminal apps, but some of them, oh my gosh, they're gorgeous little apps with nice graphing and all sorts of stuff. Never even knew this was a thing or that this was an app.
Right.
And people complain about Linux not having enough apps.
Dude,
Ridiculous.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Ridiculous.
B-Man, I want to give a quick mention for the Linux Action Show subreddit over at linuxactionshow.reddit.com. One of the greatest looking subreddits on Reddit, and I mean that. And you scroll down here, and we've got some stories like she named her son Linux and her second child Mac, or real-time analysis of analysis of Linux's real-time capabilities. All kinds of great stories that didn't even make it into this week's show, and you can go there and submit stories for the big show, vote them up, vote them down, leave comments.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that stuff makes it right into the show. And then we think about what you guys are finding interesting, and it really helps us sort of gauge what should make it into the big show.
And a lot of times we read it and pretend to have done research. It's pretty nice.
That's always handy, too, especially on these short days, right? Where we have no time. Yeah. All right, B-Man, let's do the news.
It's new in the news this week.
All right, Brian. The top story on the news docket for this week. Munich mayor says the switch to Linux has saved them money and reduced complaints.
Of course.
This is a major transition. So this is I'll give you some of the interesting stats. The current impact budget for this amounts to about 11.7 million euro, which is about 15.6 million US. And that does seem like a large sum of money. But keep in mind that they've actually been working on this since 2006, and they've done the math, and they figured that upgrading to the Windows systems, upgrading all the systems to some sort of comparable level with Windows, that would now match their Linux infrastructure. If you included hardware and software, they believe it'd be 15.52 million euros. So that's a pretty big difference to the cost in Windows. Yeah. But here's what I found to be particularly interesting. Because, we all know, I don't think it surprises anybody to come on here and say, oh my gosh, these people save money by using free software. Unbelievable. And that's even factoring in.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm like, the real news here would be if the Munich mayor came out and was like, man, we switched to Linux and it cost us an extra $1 billion. It's just so expensive.
I mean, there have been some stories like they talk about one here in the news story where it just hasn't gone very well. But yeah, I agree. I think the real interesting data point is the number of complaints has gone dramatically down, even in despite of the fact that they've added considerably more desktops. They go on to say that as of March 23rd, just a couple of weeks ago, they now have 10,000 systems running what they call Linux, which is their version of Linux, I guess, that's based on Ubuntu. The client is Ubuntu-based with a KDE graphical interface. All PCs get equipped with OpenOffice.org. I don't know if they actually mean LibreOffice. Firefox, Thunderbird for email, and Gimp for image editing. They plan to keep growing and expanding from there, though. As of January, they have 15,000 workstations that use Firefox, Thunderbird, and OpenOffice, sort of like that,
pretty rad.
Preparing them to switch over to Linux thing. But here's the interesting bit. The maximum number of complaints when they were running Windows desktops was about 70 per month, which isn't too bad, really.
No, that's not bad.
After they switched to the Linux workstations, And by the way, they increased from 1,500 to 9,500. So not only did they switch to Linux, but they also went from 1,500 installations to 9,500. The maximum complaints per month has actually dropped to 46. So they got to drop from 70 complaints per month to 46 complaints per month. And they said this leads us to conclude that the decline in complaints was due to the migration of Linux to Linux.
46 is a lower number than 70. I like that.
Especially when you go from 1,500 workstations to 9,500 workstations and you still bring down your complaints. That is a real accomplishment and a major increase in your install base, too.
Seriously solid.
And some of the FUD that I think Microsoft and others spread around is, well, sure, Linux is free, but your support costs are really what just bleeds you dry.
You got your TCO, your total cost of ownership's way too high with Linux, you know?
Yeah, your TCO.
Yeah. Your TCO. You got to watch your TCO. You got to factor that in there, you know? There's just training costs. Those training costs. Oh, man. No one knows how to use Linux. You log in and you're like, what? Command line? I don't know.
This is not good for my TCO. By the end of 2012, they expect 12,000 computers will be running Linux. And at that point, they'll call their project Finish because their goal was to migrate 80% of all computers. And once they hit the 12,000 mark, that will be accomplished.
And yes, the chat room is correctly pointing out to us right now that in our universe, Microsoft has become a Canadian with a bad Canadian accent.
Yeah.
Just so everyone's very clear on this. That did just happen.
You're welcome. Hopefully Alan isn't watching, or else we might get thundersmacked or something. All right.
Is that what Canadians do now? They thunder smack?
Yeah. The Canadians thunder smack. Here in America, we eagle smack. So, I mean, everybody's got their own smack.
Dude, I eagle smack all the time.
I know. I can't help but eagle smack.
I can't help it.
B-Man, we've talked about OwnCloud on the show quite a few times. We even did an episode on it where we kind of showed our setups and how we were using it. That was a fun episode. OwnCloud, though, is they're laying their flag in the ground and they're saying, it's here. We're doing it. We have an enterprise version. You can pay us now. And I was like, an enterprise version of OwnCloud? What's this look like? How's this shape up? Well, let me tell you, B-Man. OwnCloud 2012 Business and Enterprise editions have been announced. It introduces desktop syncing clients for Windows and Linux, as well as mobile apps for Android and iOS. Okay, I'll continue on. OwnCloud Business starts at $999 a year or $100 a month for up to 50 users. You can go OwnCloud Enterprise for $15,000 a year or $1,500 a month for up to 250 users.
That's the one I'm going to go ahead and get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to grab me one of those real quick.
Yeah, you got to go big.
You go big in OwnCloud or you go home.
So I'm of a mixed opinion on this because I really want OwnCloud to succeed. Like, that's great to me. We need a good open Dropbox competitor or Box.net, whatever you want the competitor to be. We need a good alternative there. But these prices, and for what you get, like, for example, in the enterprise version, you get easier management, support and maintenance subscriptions, plugins, and commercial licenses. And see, the thing is like the desktop syncing client and the mobile apps, there already are some out there because OwnCloud has, it has an infrastructure API you can write to. But that seems like something the free version needs to have because every other free syncing system out there
has those.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking too. And I'm like, well, I dig OwnCloud. OwnCloud's pretty cool. We like OwnCloud. I consider using OwnCloud, but really, I don't think what they're rolling out today is for me. So I'm gonna hold back my judgment. Maybe it'll turn out that it's a mega success, and the people that need it are gonna jump all over it. But we'll see. I have my doubts just because it's not what I need.
I agree. I'm a little disappointed because I've been sort of watching OwnCloud and hoping it'd sort of be my savior from Dropbox. We've covered there's security issues with Dropbox that are just fundamental to the design of the Dropbox architecture. We've talked about them on TechSnap, and I kind of would like to move away from that. And Jupiter Broadcasting collaborates with editors and production people all literally around the world, and we use Dropbox to synchronize our work files between each other. And I hate, like, I am personally pushing out Dropbox amongst all of these people, making them use Dropbox. And I would much rather be like, here's the JB OwnCloud server, install this client, you're good to go. And I would have to go with something like one of these enterprise editions, and there's just no way I'd pay that.
Especially when there are other options that we can set up on our local machines that we don't need that.
Giant Bot Q in the chat room is correctly pointing out that I should look into Spider Oak.
Well, Spider Oak's cool.
Yeah,
Nothing's
we've talked
wrong
about it a
with
little
Spider
bit.
Oak.
Yeah. But it's just, I'm a little disappointed. I hope this is OwnCloud step 1. They're kind of putting this a little feeler out there, see what the response is, and then maybe they can bring something else. It's just, what can they do to differentiate the Enterprise Edition that would actually make me, bite like that? I don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea. It's not for me, I don't think.
Because all of that still, by the way, I believe, now I could be wrong, I'll have to look into this, but I believe all of that still requires that you host your own OwnCloud instance. So you still also would have to buy the server hardware and pay for the hosting and set it all up like that. So that subscription, I don't know, maybe that subscription gets you some sort of hosting on their end. I
don't know. Skeptical Brian is skeptical.
I agree, sir. Why don't we talk about the Spark tablet, a.k.a. the Vivaldi tablet.
Vivaldi.
And it's seen a slight delay. Now, this is, of course, something we've talked about a ton on the show. We're very excited about this tablet. But Aaron Saigo took to the web and also to email. Did you get the email?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll talk about that in a second. He says, this is from Aaron Saigo on his blog. He says, we'd expected to be able to pull the lever on orders for the Vivaldi tablet a couple of days ago. Last month, though, there have been some developments that have consequently pushed back the project by about a month. It goes on to say a number of things in our supply chain through to the retail ended up taking longer than we expected. However, that's a blessing in disguise, he says. This is the Plasma Active Mirror OS that will appear on the device is progressing nicely with things like hardware buttons, file management, and more starting to really slot in. It's interesting.
Awesome.
Interesting vernacular he's using here. Pull the lever, slot in. Apparently, he's got Vegas on the mind. Thanks to extended timeline delivery, we will also likely be shipping from day one with the ability to set activities as private and have them locked with encryption behind a password. Remember, I'd asked him about that on the show, and he said they were working on that.
They were working on it, and it just sounds like such a cool feature.
Yeah. So the delay, it's funny because if you read the comments, people start comparing this like with the Pandora tablet. People really start freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, here's the thing, and we'll get into this in a second because the Vivaldi is a little bit delayed. It's not that big a deal. The Raspberry Pi is delayed.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. We know both of them are coming is the thing. We know both of them are happening. The people behind them are communicating regularly, and it's really happening. With the Open Pandora project, it was more of they made a couple, then they kind of ran out of money, and then it took a while to re-architect the whole thing. They're not talking about Vivaldi re-architecting. They're talking about supply chain issues, and it's resolving itself. Aaron Saigo is kind of putting himself on the line here. So if he really thought that there's just no way this thing is going to ship for a year or two, he wouldn't come out and say it's just a couple supply chain issues.
Right.
So
I have a tendency to believe him because I've seen the Anything C71. I've held it in my own hands. It's a real product.
Yeah, it sells right now. It's just a matter of getting the right amounts, getting the right boxing, getting the right packaging,
and getting things like hardware button support. I'd say is worth a delay there.
It's fine.
All other things being equal, if there was no other issue, having file browsing and hardware button support, I'd say I'd wait a month for that.
Yeah. I mean, heck, I want to make fun of Aaron a little bit because he's basically coming out and saying, it's late. Isn't that great? Isn't it great that it's late? You guys are so lucky that it's not shipping right now.
He did put quite the spin on it.
He totally put a spin on it. But in all reality, he is right. I mean, with Mare in the state it's currently in, their distribution of Mare, their version of it, they're going to be shipping on this thing. It would be actually kind of nice if they could get an extra month to work on it. So this works.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm not too worried about it, and we'll still get our chance to play with it. Everybody wants their new toy, right? Everybody's excited for it. So we'll see. We want it to be successful. And I know that like and
in the meantime, if people are really itching for a thing to spend money on, they could always go to Lunduk.com.
There you go. Get a Linux Tycoon.
Okay, I'm done. I can plug no more. I have no more plugging in me.
I don't know if the Vivaldi tablet will feature it, but I know that the Anything guys are retrofitting the hardware with additional memory. And I don't know if this tablet, if theirs is going to ship with it, because I don't know about increased costs or whatever.
Or if it's a different,
There could be something there, too, as I believe Anything is making some tweaks to the product itself.
A slightly upgraded one, yeah.
Yeah. All right, B-Man, well, why don't we talk about our favorite software package? That is the Gimp. Version 2.80 just hit release candidate 1.
Yes.
And it's got some interesting features.
Yes.
Anything particularly jump out at you? I have got
GEGL acceleration.
Oh, that was mine too. Yep.
That is what it's all about.
Tell the peeps what it is.
Features. Basically, what we're talking about is GEGL acceleration is basically the OpenGL acceleration of graphics processing, and it also has theoretical support for OpenCL. Theoretical because
It's not working yet.
It's not working yet.
Yeah.
But in the back end, theoretically, when you got a full OpenCL stack working on your Linux box and they kind of throw the switch inside of the GIMP, it will be able to use OpenCL as well, theoretically. But we all know how well theoretical stuff works out. But even without OpenCL, it's got GEGL, which should speed things up considerably. Now they're doing a release candidate on this because they're like, we feel like this is pretty solid, but because we're using this new GEGL backend for some of the rendering, and so like the adjust brightness levels and things like that are basically completely new.
Yeah,
These are totally new implementations of them. They're putting this out there as release candidate and really encouraging people to try it out, try using these filters out, make sure they work as you'd expect before they launch this thing final, which I think is smart. So this is actually pretty exciting. This is kind of the coolest GIMP release I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to see them stay sort of on the cutting edge of graphics card acceleration. Now you can tell they're pushing it as far as they can right now. But this is such a competitive area. This graphics acceleration of all this stuff is totally being baked into all of the Adobe products now. And to compete with that, you got to have that. And there is a significant real-time stuff just happens when you have that. So
that's true.
Wait for the GIMP to get that.
And in order for things to compete with all those Adobe products with those features baked in, you got to get baked yourself. So
that's true.
That's true.
GIMP is working hard to get baked as fast as possible.
They are getting really, really baked over there at Team GIMP.
Yeah. Let's talk about something else that might be baking. That's new version of Qt, Qt5 Alpha. Not cutie like a puppy, but Qt like Q and a T.
Now, this is normally, most new APIs coming out isn't all that big of news. If new version of GTK being announced, normally that's not that big of a thing. But in this case, this marks a fairly major paradigm shift in the way that Qt apps are being recommended to be developed, which has really dramatic ramifications all across the KDE world.
Whoa.
Basically, what they're saying is that they're encouraging people to use C++ and Qt5 for back-end processing only, and then having the Qt Quick all QML side of things for all the front end, and just focusing on that entirely. Now that's kind of been in the cards, kind of been coming for a while now, but now it is really official. Qt5 is in alpha state right now, and they're encouraging people to kind of start developing new applications and porting existing applications over to use that style of development.
So QML is the big thing, huh? I mean, the Vivaldi tablet, its UI is going to be built around little QML widgets. The new KDE widgets, starting with KDE 4.8, baked in support for QML. It's all a markup language, though, right? Isn't this sort of we asked the question to Aaron, and I thought he punted a little bit, because the question was, don't you have a performance impact by running all of this stuff in a markup language instead of native?
Because we're talking about the UI and not the back end. So anytime you're going to be doing hardcore number crunching, you're going to drop down to C++ and do it on that side of things.
Aha, I see.
So it's fine. Yeah, it actually really does work out. It's similar in a lot of ways to kind of how Microsoft is doing this with something called XAML, and they did that with Silverlight as well, where basically you have kind of like an extensible markup language doing all the front end side of things, and really that makes sense, because all you got to do is describe where things are located, describe some basic interaction between objects, and you're pretty much done. You can build most applications that way, or at least the majority of most applications. But then any big, hardy, hardcore stuff, you're going to do a whole lot of data crunching or something, you drop down to the C++ layer.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
But the interesting thing here is this is going to be the basis, I'm sure, of the next version of KDE. So that's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, this will be what KDE 5 is based off for definite. All right, B-Man, there's been a little Raspberry Pi news, besides the top story is that I don't have one.
So none of us have one right now. In fact, those that ordered it from the Element folks, they actually, most people got emails saying, you might not get it until August. And then everyone went, what?
Yeah, mind blown.
The Raspberry Pi folks came out, and the Element folks came out. We're like, wait, well, when we said August, we were just kind of hedging our bets, because
don't freak out, everybody.
Don't freak out. I mean, I'm sure we'll have them to you before August. In fact, there aren't release dates that I'm seeing for it.
No,
except for before August, which kind of makes me giggle a little bit. But
They will be.
But-
We can absolutely commit that our orders will be shipped in the order they were originally received, and that no one has lost their place in the queue
Right.
as a result of this latest change.
So if you were on the top of the queue, well, you'll get yours before August.
Right.
Same with the people who got theirs later in the queue. You might get yours before August. So there's no real information yet. Basically, they got to go through some certification processes there over in the United Kingdom of England and the Queen, and get things all certified over there before shipping out. And that's all there is to it. Once they get certified, the boards will be shipping out.
They better hurry, B-Man. December 21st, 2012 quickly approaches. If they slip that deadline too much, they're never going to get a chance to ship.
They're never going to get a chance to ship. I mean, come on. The
Everybody
Mayans
knows.
are going to drop their nuke and it's all going to be over.
Right. The Mayans and their nukes.
Mhm.
Right? Yeah.
The Mayan nuclear program is hardcore.
All right, let's talk about GNOME. We talked a little bit about Qt and KDE. Let's talk about GNOME 3.4.
Now, this is kind of exciting. So if you guys haven't been following exactly how GNOME handles releases, their even numbered point releases are the big ones, and their odd numbered point releases are fix the even numbered point release.
Yep.
so like GNOME 3.0 was change everything. No 3.1. Okay, it works this time. GNOME 3.2. We're gonna finally fix the things that made it really crummy to use 3.0.
Yeah.
GNOME 3.3. Okay, we really screwed up. It's fixed now. GNOME 3.4 actually isn't that dramatic. They made a lot of small changes. They've made some major updates to the UI for the web browser, which is called Web.
I like that.
Which is
That's great.
why did anyone think of that before? Just
Yeah.
Web.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of this internet button. No, just Web.
Netscape.
straightforward.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what
but
that
I know
is.
what the web is.
Is that something you use on your windshield when it's icy outside? I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't understand. So it's Web, and it looks really nice. They've made a lot of improvements for working with tablets, which is cool.
Oh yeah. They need to, because KDE is making a lot of progress in that area.
Overall, though, I mean, I don't feel like they've made as much progress in that area as KDE has made recently.
For sure.
But it does look nice. It is very classy looking, and it is looking good. I'm not running 3.4. Well, I am running 3.4 on this machine over there, but that's a machine I don't really use, so I haven't really been playing around with it much. It looks nice at first glance. Everything is very, very peppy. I've been pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
so far. And it did not crash after I installed it. So high five.
Yeah,
I'm
performance
not
is a
really sure.
big part of this release. I've seen them put that on the list in multiple locations. Is improved performance, improved looks, smoother scrolling, all that kind of stuff. I'm still on the GNOME fence, but I have faith that each one of these iterations will make it more likely that I'm going to use it. And honestly, after looking at Windows 8, this really does not seem that bad. Like this, seriously, compared to Windows 8, I believe I can now make the bridge between where I want it to be and where it is now seems visible. As before, I was like, I just don't think I could ever use this. Now I'm like, this looks like a cup of nice, refreshing water in a Windows 8 desert, B-Man.
Seriously. It went from basically a giant cup of rotten apple to the most delicious hot apple cider you've ever drank in your life.
Yeah.
No, I mean, GNOME 3 was always nice, but just maybe not for me. You know, it wasn't really what I wanted. But yeah, now looking at Windows 8, I'm like, wow, the GNOME guys nailed it.
Yeah.
If someone's going to come up with a whole new UI, I'm sure glad it's the GNOME guys, because
Seriously, it's pretty bad. All right, B-Man, well, the next story on the news docket fits in really great with our next segment. Everybody's probably heard us mention at least once or twice Webcam Studio for Linux, and the one little complaint, in fact, Matt's even going to cover it in his in the next segment, is it's getting a little old, and it has some fundamental performance issues.
Little long in the tooth.
Yeah. It's got a kind of a funky UI. It's got some, when you got a lot of different video sources going through it, it can get a little leggy. Well,
unless you've got a crazy mega super System 76 gigantic monolith rig.
Right, exactly.
And then it runs fine.
Matt's already been playing with the new version the guys had in development, but now you can get your hands on it too. A Webcam Studio for Linux, it's alive, posted just 12 hours ago. And if you're watching the video version, I'm showing a mock-up of the new UI. It looks a lot different. But what he's showing in this UI is 3 real-time videos.
UI is so terrible.
I know.
I know it's just a mock-up. Go ahead and explain what's happening there.
Well, he's got real-time video mixing in here and compositing it together. He's got a source from his webcam. He's got a source from a DVD file playback. And he's got a source from a video file playback. And then he's got a master soundtrack all being mixed and playing back in real time. That's cool. But you're right. The UI is a train wreck.
Two things. One, that's awesome.
Yep.
Three things. One, that's awesome. Two, that UI needs to get fixed. Three, when you post screenshots of software you're working on that deals with video files and you show the file names in the screenshot.
Probably shouldn't have it be pirated file names.
Yeah, pro tip there.
Yeah, that's a good pro tip.
Pro tip. You don't need to show people that you downloaded the Battle for Los Angeles from mynewvideolinks.com or whatever.
Oh my gosh, it's right there in the file name.
Now, going on odds, he very likely could own those. I'm assuming he does.
Probably.
I'm assuming he owns all of that and is on the up and up. Just the same. Maybe
just play it safe.
Next time, rename the files.
Yeah.
Just rename them. Quick
Demo file 1, demo file 2. That would do.
Demo file, not Battle for Los Angeles,
right.
from my new video files from the internet.com.
Illegally-downloaded.com.
Oh, that's okay. I'll cut it back.
I guess I guess you're right on that, B-Man. Now you've played with Webcam Studio. In fact, you've even done some live streaming using Webcam Studio.
I did. It's great.
Yeah.
Webcam Studio is awesome. It has needed some upgrades, and I'm glad he's putting a bunch of work into it, and it's looking hot.
So why don't we kick it over to Matt? Matt will be showing you Webcam Studio, and he was very fortunate to have System76 send us down a Wild Dog performance rig to do these how-to segments on. So thank you to System76 for supplying Matt with the hardware so he could do these how-to segments for the Linux Action Show. And the box I'm showing right now is the very system he did this demo on. So that's really cool. I want a new System76 machine.
Oh, you know what I think we should do is every week one of us can beg System76 for a new machine.
We'll just rotate.
I did it 2 weeks ago, and we took a week off for the Windows Action Show thing. So now, it's your week. Feel free to lay it on.
I think I just did. Oh, I think I just did.
I begged. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I begged hard.
Yeah. I'd probably have a better show if I had one of those.
How many System76 boxes I got floating around here that they sent me?
How many?
None. No System76 boxes.
Meanwhile, Matt's got a Wild Dog performance. Of course, he is doing how-to segments, and we're not.
Yeah, well, Matt's actually working. Yeah. So we're...
Right. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Productive people. They get everything, B-Man.
I know. Jerks.
All right, B-Man. Well, that's all the news for this week.
Yeah, let's kick it over to Jerky Matt. Stupid Matt.
Fancy machine.
Thanks, guys. Today we're going to be talking about Webcam Studio. For those of you that are unaware, Webcam Studio is basically webcam software that allows you to manipulate the images you see on the screen and through the webcam itself, in addition to doing additional things like broadcasting your desktop and doing recording and things of that sort. So rather than me yammering on about it, how about I just go ahead and switch over and show you. I have it installed here on this System76 PC, the Wild Dog. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And of course, being this is such a fast computer, it boots right up for me. So right off the bat, I'm set up with a default layout, and I'm going to actually add a secondary layout, and I'll show you why here in a second. Now, before I begin adding any of the devices or desktop or any of that sort of stuff, there's a few things you're going to want to do with your layout so that you can jump back and forth a little bit the same way that we do here in the studio using our own stuff. So in this particular case, I'm going to jump into this first one, and I'm going to give it something I can basically a hotkey I can toggle back and forth. And I'll do T for top because I can remember that in theory. And I'm going to actually name this top, hit enter. There we go. Now I'm going to come back to this lower one. I'm going to name this one bottom. And I'm going to get that a hotkey, a B for bottom. There we go. Cool. All right. Now let's add some stuff. I'm going to take this top one. I'm going to add a webcam to it. And there we go. Hey, you can see me. All right, so we got a webcam going there. And on this one, I'm actually going to just simply add, let's do desktop. Move that over a little bit. Wait for it to kick in. And assuming it wants to cooperate. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, there are things happening. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how you can use this with something like Ustream. Now, a lot of people are wanting to do things like, hey, Matt, how do you come in here and set yourself on fire and things like that. What does it take to, put yourself in flames and actually broadcast that to the world? Well, it's actually not that hard, but what can be tricky is understanding that in order to run Webcam Studio effectively, you really, really, really need a powerful, powerful machine to get the most out of it. So with that in mind, we will go ahead and mistype Ustream, and then we'll try it again. There we go. And it should still be all logged in. Yep. I'm going to go ahead and go live. I'm not going to actually stream this. I'm simply going to show you. Let's go ahead and okay. I can get this to cooperate with me. Come on. There we go. Attaboy. Okay, so we've got Webcam Studio going here. So now I'm going to transition to a new screen. So I'm going to go ahead and do Alt-B for bottom. And at first, helps if I click into the software. There we go. Nope. There we go. So now I'm back broadcasting my desktop using Webcam Studio, which is pretty awesome. Now, another thing you can do too, make sure my audio is working, is you have your audio controls in Ustream when you're using Webcam Studio. Audio controls in Webcam Studio don't actually mean anything at this point. What you will care about is if you're trying to stream something on something like Ustream is your actual flash controls as you see them here. In this case, I'm using the headset, and so when I tap that headset mic, you can actually see that moving. So I'm going to come back into Webcam Studio. I'm going to transition back to me. I'm going to do Alt-T, and it's going to be a very slow transition because I don't have any effects set up yet. So I'm going to go back to Alt-B, and I'm going to set up an effect for the top, which is where the webcam is. For that, I'm going to actually give it, let's see, go into my, there we go. Actually, let's do transitions here. I'm going to do a transition out as a shrink out. And then for the other one, I will do a transition out as a slide out. Now let's see if any of that took. So let's go ahead and do T. Okay, there we go. So as you on Ustream, you can see that actually did pop in. And now we'll go B. And so we have some transitions there. Now, if you're looking at the Webcam Studio software, you're going to note that your usage meter here has very comfortably went from about 14% up to about 83%. That's the nature of the software, and it's also part of the reason why it's being redesigned. There's the developers actually working on making sure it's using the least amount of resources possible, but unfortunately, especially when you're running the desktop stuff, it tends to eat through it pretty quickly. So that's kind of the nature of the beast. So definitely you're going to want the most powerful computer possible. This particular computer runs it pretty well simply because it is a Wild Dog performance from System 76. They do pretty well with that. But on my home computer, not so much. It's running a couple gigs of RAM. It's running like a quad-core processor, but it can be a little pokey. So definitely consider specs when you're looking at running the software. Now, if you're wanting to run some effects on this, I'll go ahead and transition back to the top where my webcam is. I will actually put myself in, let's go ahead and light me on fire. Now, this is where it gets to be a lot of fun. You can actually light yourself on fire and do like a little dance for everybody, and broadcast it to the world. You can record it. It's really all there is to it. I mean, it's pretty simple to do. The controls for each, let me get rid of the flames here. The controls for each are really going to be Webcam Studio specific in the sense that you have your format controls, frame rate, that sort of thing. My recommendation when it comes to the webcam aspect of this, keep your frame rate at about 15. And the reason why is because it's going to just eat your resources alive. Again, the software isn't absolutely perfect, so bear that in mind. The other thing to remember is also your format. I tend to keep the format pretty low. I'm keeping it at a 320 by 240. And as far as the output size, I keep it pretty comparable to that as well. And you can see that here. Additional features that are in Webcam Studio that everybody's asking me about as well, such as all the different widgets and all this other, being able to stream things to your iPhone and all that stuff. I don't know how much of that's going to be around, so there's not really a lot of benefit in getting into that. But I will tell you that there is a screen recorder that you can use with Webcam Studio that's pretty simple to use. Now I'm going to go ahead and kill off Ustream there. Basically, you can come to sources and then just basically choose to record. And then from there, this little video recorder is going to pop up. And you can select, let's go ahead and do OGG, and I will do, let's call it this, and we'll see if it cooperates. And this is another feature that I don't know if it's going to be around for long, but we're going to give it a try. Go ahead and record, and we'll see. Yep. Okay, so that's working. So as I can do my thing on the webcam and so on and so forth, it should show that. I will do a couple transitions here real quick. It's going to be a little delayed because you are doing a recording here, but all right. Bounce back and forth. And now I'm going to go ahead and stop it and see if it took. It should have. And we should see video. Yep. So that transitioned just fine. And the same rules apply with the audio stuff. It's pretty basic stuff. So, as I showed you with Ustream. And so, yeah, that's really all there is to it. Now, if you have an opportunity at some point to watch the Pulse Audio segment, that will explain how to handle specific application stuff as far as like making it work with Webcam Studio out of Ustream or to make it work with this particular recording program and that sort of thing. So keep an eye out for that. That will be here on the show. And that's really all there is to it. It's a great little program, but it's got a little ways to go. There's some room for improvement, and the developer is certainly working on it. And I'm working on getting the word out there on it so that folks are actively trying it out and testing out the betas and, really providing feedback to him. So definitely check that out. So that's really all there is for it. As usual, if you have questions about the software or you're getting stuck on a how-to, you can always reach me at matt@jupiterbroadcasting.com. And that's going to be it for me. Back to you guys.
I'm pretty confident now that we've heard from that total jerkwad Matt that this is the... I'm sorry, I'm just kidding, Matt. I'm just jealous that this is the end of this week's broadcast. I want to thank everyone for coming on and hanging out with us where we actually covered Linux. That was kind of exciting.
That was new.
Yeah. Oh, Chris, I'm telling you.
Much easier, I got to tell you.
I still have 2 or 3 organs that are on the verge of failure after last week's show. Yeah. It was rough. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in. You can check us out over at jupiterbroadcasting.com, jupitercolony.com. That's the forum. There's also links all over the place where you can click on things and you can find us on like the Google Pluses and the Twitters. By the way, the Google Plus, rumors of its demise are greatly exaggerated. I don't know how it's working for everyone else, but for us, it's kind of awesome because it's a really cool way to have nice threaded messages on topics. So if you want to get a hold of us and like ask our opinion and see what other people who watch the Linux Action Show are thinking, Google Plus is pretty tight. You don't want to use that? Head over to reddit.com/Linux Action Show or linuxactionshow.reddit.com, depending on whether you want to put the Linux Action Show before or after the reddit.com.
I prefer before because then you don't have to deal with that rogue/r/Linux Action Show. You know that?
I hate that thing.
I know.
I hate that rogue/r.
I know.
The /r is lame and it needs to go. We need to start a campaign to remove the /r from the Reddit. Anyway, you can catch us out over there. That's pretty fantastic too.
Those are great ways to get hold of us because they're in public, so we feel more responsible to respond to you. So you get a better chance. Much more. Now we'll have a full regular show. There shouldn't be any reason why we'd miss next Sunday, so we should be back at the regular time slot.
Just to make a point here. So I made a blog post. Just a couple of days ago because I'd just been getting flooded with email. Let me bring this up here and just to read you the numbers here. So I had 1,528 unread emails. Now this does not include spam messages and emails telling me, here's a press release from some guy. This was all stuff that had already been totally filtered down. This was just emails from people asking my opinions. Hey, Brian, what computer should I get? Which people ask me a lot. I'm like, I don't know, buy a System 76, I guess. It's one I would buy if I didn't have to buy it and they'd give it to me. No, just kidding. It's awesome. But so I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend like a day and I'm just going to read emails and I'm going to reply to them.
I've tried that.
After doing that for a day, my email count, and after the week I've had, it is now up to 2,018.
Yeah.
So
I literally couldn't give you a count because I have it across so many different mailboxes, but I have 650 unread emails in this inbox, 396 plus 996 plus 446 plus 103 plus 574. So whatever all that adds up to, that's how many unread emails I have. So I'm a little behind.
Here's the thing. It's impossible to do that much math. You can't have that many operations.
You can't have that much email. It's just impossible to do that much email.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So if you do need to get a hold of us, social networks, because otherwise we probably won't see it. Like,
Right.
I'll try, but no guarantee.
Those social networks are so good about keeping it in front of your face. That's part of what it is.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have a regular big show next week once we get through the holiday. And you can go check out the links in the show notes for everything we talked about. We've got links to Jupiter Broadcasting's Google Plus page. Oh, that's what I was going to say, B-Man, is I think Google Plus is just more of a technical crowd. That's why I think to you and I it seems pretty active, but I think to non-technical people it seems kind of dead.
Well, come on. If you're watching the Linux Action Show, you're probably not super like noob-ish in knowing what a computer. You're not going, whoa, a mouse. What's a right click? You're not one of those guys.
Right. Oh, and just one last update. So last week I announced that Jupiter Broadcasting has a Zonotic server.
Yeah.
And number one Zonotic server in the world now.
Of course it is.
So go check it out. You go to jupiterbroadcasting.com. I've got an in-depth look on our Zonotic server, or you can find information in the jupitercolony.com forum. Or if you're just in Zonotic, connect to zonotic.jupitercolony.com and play on the world's number one Zonotic server.
You ever feel like Jupiter Broadcasting is just kind of slowly becoming like a video game powerhouse?
It is pretty wild, huh?
We've got like the number one Zonotic server. We've got this totally righteous Minecraft server. You've got basically the largest and most rock and Star Trek online guild. You've got forums associated to it that are just hopping. I mean,
we got Torch, we got Stoked, and you've got your BBS for the old school gamers. I mean,
and I built 2 games.
And yet, it's really.
I hear you can buy at London.com.
I think it's really for me.
I'm sorry. I thought I was done plugging. I had one more.
Just came in,
like,
just slipped out.
It just fell out of my mouth. Yeah.
I think what it is for me is it really all comes around technology, and then gaming is such a second close, like related passion to technology.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
Yeah. When I'm not doing technical things, I'm doing gaming things, I guess is how it goes. All right. Well, I think that just about wraps up this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We are typically live, with the exception of today, over at jblive.tv, 10 a.m. Pacific on Sunday mornings.
Sunday.
And then we release later that afternoon over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Yeah, B-Man?
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. And we'll see you right back here next week. Ready when you are.
I was too just there.
I know. I was waiting for you to breathe in.